Good evening. Sir Keir Starmer just can't give a straight answer, can he? Kemi Badenoch mocked and mauled him today at PMQs. His own MPs have described him as a caretaker PM. She had to explain to him what that meant.
Being called a caretaker because everyone can see that he's lost control of his party. And this lot, they're all so busy trying to replace him. They can make as much noise as they like. We all know that this lot are so busy trying to replace...
Kemi Badenoch obliterates Keir Starmer on live TV. Good day and welcome back to the British Report. The House of Commons today was the scene of a magnificent, brutal public execution, as Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch completely annihilated Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, exposing his government's complete incompetence on their core promises and making him look utterly clueless. The entire session was a three-round spectacle where Starmer was forced to cling to utterly fabricated figures, culminating in Badenoch's scorching, legendary verdict: they wouldn't know the truth if it punched them in the face. This was more than just a political skirmish. It was a devastating humiliation that will haunt the Prime Minister. A session where the facts proved to be weapons of mass destruction against the government's carefully constructed narrative of competence. Quick favour, if you're loving this dramatic political chaos, hit that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers haven't yet. It's free, takes a second and means the world to us. Thanks, if you did. Now back to the show, because the best part is seeing the Prime Minister utterly dismantled by the facts. One simple, devastating question at a time, proving his government is all hot air and broken promises. The confrontation began with the issue that is causing maximum pain across the country: the cost of living crisis, specifically the government's flagship promise to cut energy bills by $300 a year. Badenoch asked a direct but simple question: how much have bills fallen by since Labour took office? Starmer, with a smirk that quickly evaporated, claimed that families have seen $150 taken off their bills, with an extra $150 cut for the 6 million poorest families through the expanded Warm Home Discount Scheme, crediting his Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband. This was his defence, a mix of claimed reductions and targeted welfare payments. But Badenoch delivered the crushing reality check, citing figures that track the energy price cap since the last election. Wrong! Energy bills have risen by 180 centavos since you took office. The facts published by energy regulators are devastating. The average annual bill has jumped dramatically, completely reversing Starmer's central promise and proving that his so-called solution is nothing but smoke and mirrors, with the increase in standing charges alone wiping out any claimed savings for the average household. The increase in the actual price of energy has completely overshadowed the modest relief measures Starmer boasts about. This forced the Prime Minister to immediately pivot, using a classic deflection tactic to ask a question about Conservative infighting. But Badenoch was not to be moved, instantly dismissing his response with the delicious observation: I asked him about energy bills. You could power the national grid on all of that hot air. She then twisted the knife, claiming that Energy Secretary Ed Miliband, a former Labour leader who previously resigned after losing an election, was trying to recycle himself by plotting to replace Starmer, confirming the rumours that the entire cabinet is more focused on backstabbing than on solving the energy crisis. It was a flawless piece of political theatre, making the Prime Minister look not just wrong, but politically weak, and perpetually glancing over his shoulder. Now, you would think Starmer would correct course, but he simply doubled down on the deceit when Badenoch moved to the second key area: education, a sector where the government had promised sweeping improvements and massive investment. She demanded to know how much progress had been made on Labour's promise to recruit an additional 6,500 teachers in England. When the Prime Minister attempted to deflect, claiming teacher numbers had gone up and were on a proud upward trajectory, Badenoch delivered the second hammer blow with a theatrical shout: wrong! There are now 400 fewer teachers. The Conservative leader cited the government's own Department for Education statistics, which confirm a fall in the full-time equivalent FTE number of teachers since the previous reporting year, a drop of precisely 400, showing the government's pledge to recruit is failing utterly. This is happening at a time when the secondary school pupil population is still near its peak, resulting in larger class sizes and more pressure on existing staff. Starmer's claim of an upward trajectory was revealed to be a complete fabrication, utterly detached from the data published on the government's own website. Badenoch, sensing the kill, then dragged the Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson into the mud, who was visibly shaking her head at the data, implying she was either unaware of the figures or simply in denial, accusing her of making a mess of the department just like every other cabinet minister. The message was crystal clear. The government is failing to deliver on its mandate, and the Prime Minister has no idea what is actually happening in his own departments, proving his leadership is fatally disconnected from reality. Finally, Badenoch went for the trifecta, hitting the Prime Minister on law and order, a subject where public confidence in the government is already at rock bottom. She asked what progress had been made on their pledge to recruit 13,000 more police officers to neighbourhood and community policing. Starmer, desperate and flustered, replied that police numbers were rising and claimed they would see 3,000 more by the end of March. The Prime Minister seemed to be using the slightly higher number of officers compared to a few years ago rather than the more recent figures. But Badenoch, armed with official Home Office government figures, delivered the conclusive, devastating blow. Wrong again. There are now 1,300 fewer officers than at the election. This statistic, based on data tracking the change in officer numbers between the last election and the most recent quarterly figures for England and Wales, showed a net decrease of over 1,300 full-time equivalent FTE officers. This proved that the government is presiding over a severe retention crisis, with forces losing officers faster than they can recruit them, a catastrophic failure that leaves the public less safe and exposes Starmer's Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, as equally ineffective. As Labour MPs began to loudly object and protest this final crushing point, attempting to drown out the damning evidence with noise, Badenoch delivered her now famous, scathing final line to the entire government front bench. "It's the truth. I know they wouldn't know the truth if it punched them in the face." Kemi Badenoch didn't just win PMQs. She achieved a total annihilation of the Prime Minister's credibility, proving his government is failing on bills, schools and security, and is actively lying about its own numbers to the public, setting the stage for a dramatic collapse in public trust. Thank you so much for watching.